Alright guys, HyDra here, and today I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania is officially back on the menu post-Major 2 in Miami with the Los Angeles Thieves, the first team to make a change in this period. Afro is gone, JoeDeceives, their bench player, back into the starting lineup. Is this enough to realistically move the needle on this team after another disappointing LAN performance? Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, of course, we are going to address the elephant in the room. Lots of discussion, and for very good reason, on yesterday's video. It's very rare that I regret something that I've said on the channel, because when I put something in a video, I try and make sure that I stand by it. But on this case, I definitely feel like I went too far in parts. If you guys didn't see the content yesterday, we were discussing the pictures that were going around of Pred on the Saturday nights here in Miami under various activities. Now, this was discussed on the OpTic watch party to some length. It was a general talking point in the community on the Championship Sunday, and I don't think I was wrong to discuss it. I do think, though, I went too far with the speculation. So we ran the Dope Chick episode, the podcast, on the Monday night, and obviously we brought this up and discussed it, and, you know, saw some of the timestamps and all these other things, and Ace was kind of the first to speak in it, and I'm not going to throw Ace under the bus or anything. I'm taking full responsibility for what I said, of course. But Ace is pretty close with Pred. He was kind of the first to comment on the matter on the show, and he, you know, spoke for a minute or so about how he thought what Pred had done wasn't acceptable, and then some rumours were discussed on the show that he was out until like 4 in the morning and stuff like this. And look, I put 2 and 2 together more quickly than I should have done and said, you know what, yeah, probably this is true. I was then informed yesterday that in fact Pred was not out anywhere near as late as we had discussed at the time and speculated on. I'd heard that he was back by midnight. You know, I don't think we're ever going to get the full story on this really unless Pred wants to comment on it publicly, and if he decides to, then we can discuss it further, because I'm not sure anyone knows the full timeline of events apart from Pred, and at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't really matter. But there's been various discussions on this. The truth of the matter is, of course, I didn't know what the timeline was, when Pred was there, when he was gone. So just speculate as I did onto the culture of the team and the implications on how the team structure is and how it compares to other rosters was unfair in the circumstance. I've apologised to Pred about this in private. I think when you make 60 videos on this type of stuff a month, every so often you're probably bound to overstep the mark, but I'm always happy to admit my mistakes when I make them. And look, you guys know that I already owe Dashy a steak dinner after the last couple of years, so I'm hoping if the boys still want to do this, then Toronto, that's what we're at least planning to do. And yeah, the offer is extended to Pred, so if he's interested, steak dinner on me. Anything you want on the menu, it's coming out of my bank account. So I think that's all I wanted to say on the matter, and well, we have lots else to discuss. Rostermania, firstly, of the teams that need to make changes, but also from the Los Angeles Thieves. Here was Fellow, I'm not sure whose Twitch chat this was in actually, but him and JoeDeceives having a back and forth before this was confirmed, and as Fellow says, basically Joe was talking about, you know, return, these other things. Fellow was like, guess we'll find out soon. So yeah, the implication was they're making a move. Now, we got our first batch of Lion Man cards yesterday from the Major, and these were pretty ugly for some of these teams. This is the Seattle Surge, aBeZy, Hook, and I mean, Hook's first blooding abilities is basically the only good thing this team has to offer in Search and Destroy. He's got great damage around as well for his role. So is aBeZy. I mean, these two guys are clearly the best two players on the team. Pretty impressive actually from Nastie to somehow go positive but have a 58 rating, just because it doesn't consider KD. That's actually not at all a factor. It just considers where you are in the stats, which is usually kills per 10, hill time per 10, and these other things in the relative game modes compared to your competition. So yeah, 58 it's a pretty ugly card, I'm not gonna lie. Surge need to do something, surely. This, for example, is another 58 here from ErikBooM. He's had a rough time. MettalZ had a terrible major though, to be fair, and they got bodied out on LAN again. So we think Miami are gonna make a change. Real's got his visa approved. He's coming over to the US imminently. Obviously, JurNii is gone, so the assumption would be that Real will come in to replace one of these guys, although it's not yet going to be confirmed who that's going to be. The other team that had a terrible run, of course, was Boston. They are dead last of the league right now, despite all the money and the investment they've put in, and just Boston do so much for COD, you know. They're actually a great organisation, but they just can't seem to build a functioning team to save their life. And Slasher, this is after the New York loss, which was pretty competitive. He didn't tweet anything after the next series loss, so I imagine he's not particularly happy, and surely they've got to think about doing something, because as Ghosty's going to say in a second, really, you know, this is when it gets serious. you can make the changes you want to make, but it's pretty much now or never in terms of making a roster that's actually going to be competitive come the World Championship, right? But these, though, are the Los Angeles Thieves cards. Not actually too ugly, but it was really just the major performances they had that let them down, really. Their Search and Destroy has been good, thanks in large part to Afro, let's be real. He's a 99 rated, his first blood's 19 in 7, like massively influential in that mode. But his respawns were just so bad that it just wasn't going to work for Thieves. There was some discussion on whether you put Afro in for Search and you bring in somebody else for the respawns, and it might not be the worst idea ever. The problem that I have with it is it's just really difficult to maintain a functional team dynamic with that in place. It's only been tried, if you guys are new, one time in CDL history. That was back in MW19 when JoeDeceives made the inspired call to sub out Enable from the Seattle Surge roster and put in, I think it was Panda for the respawns, or for the Search and Destroy. Enable would play the respawns, then Panda would come in, and they tried it in like one series, and it clearly didn't help the internal team dynamics, and shortly afterwards Enable was gone. But Afro's been their best player by some margin. You know, he's a star player, I would say, of the league right now. Nastie, I think, has actually been very good. I know his KD doesn't necessarily reflect that, but I think in terms of impact and damage, he's definitely held his own, and that to me is a solid enough AR duo that can get you far in tournaments. The SMGs have been the question mark. Kremp has been very up and down, actually really inconsistent, and Afro has just been consistently dire in the respawns. And I defended the decision when they kept Afro over JoeDeceives and said, I think this is the right move because I think that Afro's got the higher ceiling, and I still believe that to be true. But the sample size is good enough now, and Afro from his Cold War days, alongside the likes of Cammy, the likes of Standy, that were really good in Cold War, as Afro was as well, and he was great at the start of Vanguard also. But since then, he's not been the same player. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I think that might be part of it, because I feel like his playstyle on this game, 150 HP, should work well, but you know, so often he gets caught sprinting and he just doesn't do enough damage in general, just doesn't put shots down range like he should to actually help his team out enough. And it just felt like, yeah, the time was up for Afro to return to challenges, and hopefully we get to see the spark that, you know, he was when he came into the scene. I mean, when Afro came in, it was reminiscent, really, some of the clips that he had from Cold War and Vanguard of the Dylan Cod era of Black Ops 4, another incredibly talented UK SMG player that seemed to be right there to, you know, take it to the next step of the league. But now Afro's been dropped last year from Rocker, dropped this year from Thieves, and yeah, hopefully wishing him the best, of course. And there was lots of love being sent his way by the team as well, because I think they know that he's better than what he showed, and he certainly knows that as well. But, you know, the time was up, absolutely. Whether JoeDeceives is the right man, that's a discussion we can have in a second. But as Afro says, sorry to the fans that it's come to this. I appreciate the coaches and players that have been by my side. Truly love playing here. Going back to the UK to hit a reset. So, yeah, probably from like a mentality perspective, just wishing Afro the best. And as Shane says, I don't think Jacob actually commented on this move as of yet, but he did say, incredible man with an incredible work ethic who I've no doubt will bounce back with full force. Thanks, brother. Ghosty as well was dropping the hearts. But Ghosty has some interesting words to say actually on this decision, as we'll get into here in a couple of seconds. And well, let's about do it right about now. So Naja asking about this, bit federal really, but look, he's their boss. They've got to give some sort of answer, and they don't necessarily give so much of a straight answer, but the reality is, if you're going to make a move to try and improve your roster, now is basically the time you've got to make that move, right? It's after Major 2, there's a couple of weeks off now between today and when the qualifiers start again. After Toronto, there are qualifier games the next weekend. There's no break between Major 3 and the start of the Major 4 qualifiers, which is... honestly, if Major 4 in Charlotte isn't happening, then they should just delay that, right? Because the only reason why I think the calendar was made as it was is probably because the Carolina events, they could only get the venue for a certain date. If that's now chalked and that's not going to happen anymore, then I think they really should push back those qualifier games a little bit. But I guess they've got the date locked in for champs, haven't they? So they can't push it back too far. But I guess we'll see. The reality is, though, that now is the time to make a move, especially if you're near the bottom of the league, as Thieves are. I think they're 11th, right, just above Boston. They desperately needed some points from this major. They didn't get any. They got slammed out by the Gorillas. So something had to give. Ghosty kind of says that, look, more out-of-game stuff, really, with Afro. And, you know, you can read into that what you like. The reality is that the in-game stuff wasn't working well either.
So who's coming back, or what are we doing?
Another question I can't answer.
You guys don't even know our fourth yet, bro? What do I gotta pay you for a fucking leak? We make the team change. Afro's moving to the bench for a little bit. I don't know. Ooh, how do you guys feel about it? We'll do a live interview.
I mean, I love the guy. Great. He was a great teammate. Very good player. Grinded a fucking shit ton. Shit happens.
What up, Marcus?
Absolutely love the guy.
Alright.
If you ever need anything, I'm always here for him. He's actually like one of the best teammates I've had.
Man.
Okay.
Sometimes there's things outside of
Outside of COD, yeah.
outside of COD that you have to handle.
Yeah, exactly.
And secondly, on the notion, there's only 4 majors this year. So unfortunately, it's very cutthroat this year. You know what I mean? Like the champs like cutoff and/or qualification is going to end way sooner than you think, major-wise. You know what I mean? You either take the risk or you don't take the risk.
So JoeDeceives back on the starting roster. What does this say to you guys? Because first of all, by the way, Joe's been frying in challenges. Like, he was on the FaZe back team. They didn't win the Challengers Open in Miami. They got very close to doing so. They were second in the ends. They got reverse swept. They went down, well, they went up 3-0. They lost 4-3 to Gunless's team in the finals. So there's been talk about those guys they ended up winning with that they should get in. But Joe has been basically the best SMG in Challenger since he went down there. It's certainly right up there. I mean, he had a 1.2, I think, this event in the actual, at least so far, this stage of challenges, including the Open event at the Major. He had like a 1.2. So he's been frying down there for sure. And it's not clear that any other SMG option from Challengers was necessarily a better choice. But then again, we saw Joe on this team at the start of the year, and he wasn't massively impressive. He was, it was a toss-up really between getting rid of Afro and getting rid of him. They decided to keep Afro at the time, and there was lots of people saying they should have kept JoeDeceives. But now I see loads of reaction today that seems to imply that they think JoeDeceives shouldn't have been brought back, and it's such a meh move that it's not going to upgrade the team. And that might be true, but I still think that this is probably worth a try. I'm not sure there's any other player out there in Challengers that I'd be able to like guarantee with a high degree of likelihood would find himself in a better position than JoeDeceives would to actually take this team forward. But then again, it is a relatively underwhelming move, all things considered. Like, the team did show signs of life. They played well this stage. They go to LAN though, they choke against FaZe to go up 2-0. Maybe they get reverse swept anyway, but to be fair, they won the control. Like, they were up 5-3 in the surge. They won the first half, went down the control. They could have 3-0'd FaZe. Like, they were a threat, but then they went down to losers and lost to the absolute Lanimals in the Los Angeles Grillers, which of course is unacceptable. These are the numbers just from Major 1, just to have a look here. JoeDeceives versus Afro across the relevant game modes. In terms of Slayer rating, in terms of like impact and stuff like this, it was pretty similar really between the two of them. Joe had more damage, but Afro just doesn't do any damage. That's just his modus operandi, it seems. Search and Destroy, Afro was much better, as we saw translate when Afro continued onto the team. And then Control, Joe was their best player at the time. So kind of went both ways. There was a debate on it at the time, and now they're bringing JoeDeceives back into the roster. Is this going to light the world on fire? I'm not so sure. It's not a move that a team makes that's trying to find a way to win the world championship, Like, this is a move that you make to try and become the 4th best team, 5th best team if you can, and at least solidify a move towards the world championship. But we know how Thieves are operating. They don't have infinite budgets. They can't just go and steal somebody from one of the top teams, right? So they are where they are, and I think this move is indicative of a team that has not given up at all. I think they're trying to improve, and they're kind of doing a bit of a Cold War-esque Thieves thing where they just make loads of roster changes to see what's going to stick. But I think it's probably the right move, all things considered, and the right move for an organization that doesn't have so much capital to commit to COD like some of the other teams still do, it seems. These are some options though, like Dak. If you guys remember, Dak actually, he was thrown around as a player to join Thieves last year as an emergency substitute when they eventually got captured into the roster very briefly. Dak was apparently trials and was considered, and now he just won the most recent Challengers event. So 04 Dak, those are names to definitely keep your eyes out for. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.